Now to an amazing story about the links of one MP to Communist China's spies. In Australia, the extent of the Chinese dictatorship's influence here or interference in our politics, well, it's amazing enough. It's outrageous, really. I mean, we just had China wage another massive cyber attack on our institutions, which is, to me, an act of modern war.
This activity is targeting Australian organisations across a range of sectors, including all levels of government, industry, political organisations, education, health, essential service providers and operators of other critical infrastructure.
Now, that attack helped force the Morrison government to today announce it will spend $1.3 billion on cybersecurity, another 500 jobs, to protect us from attack. Not just from China, of course, but who's the big bad boy in that bunch? Now, apart from that, we've seen very worrying examples of Chinese interests trying to co-opt our politicians, apparently. Last week, ASIO raided the offices of pro-China New South Wales Labor politician Shaukat Mosmain as it investigates alleged attempts to influence him. Now, Mosmain, who's a real mouthpiece, sometimes sounds like to me, for China, says he's done nothing wrong. The actual target of the investigation is a staffer, but Labor has suspended him. Before that, Labor Senator Sam Dastyari had to resign after taking money from Chinese billionaire Wang Zhangmo, who's very close to Labor, kicked out of the country, by the way, for being too close to China, to the Chinese regime. This guy actually gave Labor $100,000 in a plastic shopping bag, remember that? Handed it to now ex-New South Wales Labor Secretary Jamie Clements. And in Victoria, an advisor to Premier Dan Andrews, Nancy Yang, attended a Communist Chinese Party propaganda training course in 2013. Now, I'm not saying for a moment that Nancy Yang is an agent of Chinese influence. No. What I'm saying is that China's top propaganda body, this dictatorship's top propaganda body, trained her, and I'd like to know why. All this is incredible enough. But the most amazing story yet is actually over in New Zealand, although it has implications for Australia too, allies, security arrangements, etc. For 9 years, Jian Yang has been a member of Parliament for the Nationals. He's a man, this guy organised a trip to China by then Nationals leader Simon Bridges, who for some bizarre reason got to a public meeting with China's top spy chief and then went on Chinese TV to actually praise the Communist Party. Now, who got in his ear to do those stupid decisions? I don't know. Now, what makes Yang such a bizarre choice as a New Zealand MP is that before coming to New Zealand, this Chinese-born man for some 15 years worked for China's military and trained China's spies. Was a Communist Party member who taught spies English. Can you believe this? Yang says he quit the Communist Party when he moved to New Zealand. He's no spy, he's patriotic New Zealander. But ever since this story broke 3 years ago, he's dodged interviews, refuses them. So given the concern now about Chinese influence, including in New Zealand, Sky News' New Zealand correspondent Jackson Williams today went to ask this bloke for a chat. Well, Jackson Williams joined me a short while ago. Williams, thank you so much for joining me. Has Jian Yang actually given interviews explaining his role as a teacher of Chinese spies for so long?
Well, Andrew, the MP did a media conference in 2017 after revelations surfaced about his past, about his connections to military intelligence institutions in China, where he admitted to teaching Chinese spies, but he is always denied being a spy himself. But ever since those details emerged, that those revelations surfaced 3 years ago now, he has proved to be an incredibly elusive figure for journalists in this country, at least for journalists representing English language-based outlets in the country. In fact, earlier this year, when Dr. Yang's reselection as a national candidate was announced, it was done so. It was confirmed in a Chinese language statement. Since then, the MP has only risen through the party's ranks following a leadership change about a month ago, moving up on the party's list from 33 to 27. The leader of the National Party, Todd Muller, has described Dr. Yang as a hard worker who serves the Auckland community well.
Well, that's all very well, but I would have thought people, particularly with all the emphasis now on what China's, the interference of China in Western democracies, he needs to make himself a bit more available than that. What happened when you asked him today for an interview?
Well, I'm not sure if I'd quite call it an interview. I approached Dr. Yang as he was entering or about to enter the National Party's caucus meeting. This is a weekly event that takes place in Parliament during sitting weeks. Media are allowed to be there at the invitation of the party in the corridors leading to the room where MPs gather for caucus meetings. Dr. Yang was one of the last MPs to arrive this morning. I asked him whether he would like to have a bit of a chat because, as I mentioned, he has proven to be incredibly elusive over the past few years. Dr. Yang, will we be able to have a chat about your suitability to be an MP? Because some New Zealanders have concerns.
I'm perfectly suitable.
Why do you refuse to engage with English language media?
Oh, I've been talking to English media.
Why can't we have an interview now? Why can't we have a chat?
Jackson, to me, it's the guy's background. Whatever he says about, he's a loyal New Zealander now, and that was all back then, compromises him, particularly in his relations, in his dealings. It must with Chinese figures in New Zealand who might be worried about what links he may or may not still have. How is this man still a Nationals MP? How did that happen?
Well, that is a question that is being asked right now and has been asked for a considerable period by many people, including some within this building, inside the Beehive, the New Zealand parliamentary building. There have been some international media reports that some Five Eyes countries, of course New Zealand belonging to the Five Eyes intelligence sharing group, that some Five Eyes countries believe that New Zealand is compromised by having an MP with connections, his historical connections to China's military intelligence apparatus within New Zealand's parliament. Today I asked the Justice Minister Andrew Little if any Five Eyes counterparts have raised concerns about Dr. Yang given his connections to China's military intelligence apparatus. The Minister says he doesn't talk publicly about anything Five Eyes partners have raised with him, specifically in relation to national security matters. That said, the Minister believes that members of the New Zealand community will be able to make up their own minds about the role that Dr. Yang does play in New Zealand politics. One individual in New Zealand politics who has been much more forthright is the Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters, who has not held back in criticising the National Party for having Dr. Yang represent them.
Well, I'm astonished that 4 National Party leaders refused to address this issue. Just astonished.
Is it too late for them to address the issue? And what's the issue in your view?
They could start standing up for this country. They could start behaving in a way that's responsible. It is just incredible, in the extreme, that could be happening in our country.
Jackson, I've got to say that Winston Peters is saying it for me on this one. I share his amazement, to be perfectly blunt.